Good morning. This is time set for our August 14th, 2024 meeting. Tina, can you do the roll call, please?
Yes. Commissioner Edelhawk,
Here.
Commissioner Sheets,
Here.
Commissioner Rotifer,
Here.
Commissioner Bellows,
Here.
Commissioner Johnson,
Here.
Commissioner Byram,
Here.
Commissioner Witt,
Here.
and Chairman Colesis.
Present. Prior to public comment, Tina, would you please read in the record the required statement?
Yes. Persons wishing to provide public comment remotely may access the meeting by using the telephone numbers and meeting ID posted on the agenda. Public comment will be limited to 3 minutes per person, and comments based on viewpoint will not be restricted. Public comment will be available at the beginning of the meeting and at the end of the agenda. At the discretion of the chairperson, additional public comment may be heard when that item is reached. The chairperson may allow additional time to be given to a speaker as time allows at his sole discretion.
Okay, do we have any public comment here in Carson City? No? How about any public comment in Las Vegas?
Yes, Chairman, they do.
Okay. Please state your name for the record.
Sure. Yes, sir. My name is Ron Voigt. My last name is spelled V like in Victor, O as in Oscar, I as in India, G as in golf, and T as in tango. Just wanted to take a few seconds to give some thanks to a department employee, Executive Director Hughes. I want you to be aware that Public Information Officer, Patricia Olmstead, I hope I'm saying it correctly, provided me really good customer service on being able to email her. I was having problems on emailing her for requests for public information. She went the extra mile on contacting me by the phone, realizing that there wasn't going to be a way that she was going to contact me by email. So I just want to let you know that y'all may want to think twice about requiring everything being done by email, mostly within the audit arena. The phone works quite well. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment on the telephone?
To provide public comment, please press *9 now or raise hand in your Zoom window to take your place in the queue. Chair, the public line is open and working, but there are no callers wishing to participate.
Thank you very much. Director Hughes, would you please administer the oath to those parties that may be testifying?
Yes, thank you. For those testifying today, would you please stand and raise your right hand to take the oath? For those of you that plan to testify today, do you promise that your testimony during these proceedings will be truthful? If so, say "I do." Thank you.
Okay, next item is item 3A, consideration for approval of the June 25th, 2024 Nevada Tax Commission meeting minutes. Do I have a motion by any of the commissioners?
Commissioner Rotifer moves to approve.
Commissioner Witt, second.
Those that agree say aye.
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 Okay, minutes approved unanimously. Next item, item 4, consent calendar. I believe that Commissioner Edelhawk, which item is it that you wanted to identify?
Item 4D to CW Nevada. I need to disclose the fact that CW Nevada formerly had a relationship with my employer. However, that
Commissioner, can you
relation.
speak into your mic so we can
Excuse
hear
me. I'm disclosing the fact that CW Nevada formerly had a relationship with my employer. However, that relationship no longer exists, and I believe I can still participate in the matter in a fair and impartial manner.
you? Okay, thank you. Do any of the commissioners want any of these items pulled?
Mr. Chairman, this is Tom Sheets. I don't want an item pulled, but I want to make a disclosure or just make a statement on item 4A 14, the Sheets Laundry Club. For the record, I just want to indicate I have no relationship whatsoever to the Sheets Laundry Club.
And I thought we were all going to get a discount.
My wife might say otherwise, but that's not
Mr.
pertinent.
Chairman, Commissioner Byram, I would like to pull item number 4.
4A15, Tri-Vantage. Okay. Any other item?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Johnson. I also, I need to pull item 4D2, CW Nevada. I have to recuse myself on that.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Johnson, did you say 4B2 or 4D2?
4D2, CW Nevada.
Okay, so we'll pull that item. Okay, so we'll remove for now, for separate consideration, item 4A15 and item 4D2. As to the balance of the consent calendar, can I have a motion?
Move to approve the consent calendar with the two, other than the two items that have been pulled for separate consideration.
Commissioner Byram, second.
Those that agree, say aye, please.
Aye.
The consent calendar, minus those two items, is approved unanimously. Let's go to item 4A15 first. Commissioner Byram?
Yes, thank you. This is Commissioner Byram, and I had a question on this one. It's a recommendation for a waiver of penalty and interest. And normally, when there is a tax amount and an associated penalty, it's usually around 10%, unless it's a double penalty for some reason. But if I'm looking at this one, the penalty, and for the commissioners, it's page 183 in our document. The penalty of $8,665 is 38% of the tax of $22,000, and I just wondered if there was an error or if there was an original tax amount that was then adjusted, or what the explanation is for the difference.
This is Amy Ammons, A-M-M-O-N-S, for the department. Honestly, I don't have a good answer. Normally, the penalty, when it's a difference, is because it's a graduated, and so it goes to 468. But with it being more, I don't have a valid answer.
Okay, and chances are it doesn't matter because it's just an amount that's going to be waived. And so even if it was a 10%, it's going to be waived. But it was just odd to me that it was that much without any kind of a connection of the dots between the original, maybe the original tax, and then you found a correction to the tax, but the original penalty was still associated with the original tax. So I kind of...
This
Okay.
can depend on when the periods are paid. For it to be extra, like you said, about 35%, I'm not sure what the system would have done, and I would have to double check on that.
Okay, so as long as these dollar amounts do reflect the amount of tax that was paid and disclosed and paid correctly was $22,954, and that any penalty and interest, even if these amounts are odd, any penalty and interest associated with this voluntary disclosure agreement were properly waived.
Everything does look like it should be accurate for what they have paid and what has been assessed on the account.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and with that, I would move to approve item 4A15 Tri-Vantage LLC.
Commissioner Witt, second.
Those that agree, say aye.
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 Unanimously
Thank you.
approved. Thank you. Item 4D2, Commissioner Johnson? Oh, he recused on that, correct? I apologize. Can I have a motion on that then?
Byram, I move to approve the recommended settlement agreement of 4.
Commissioner Witt, second.
Those that agree, say aye.
Aye.
Unanimously approved. The consent calendar is complete, so anybody who's waiting for an item, there's no need to, it's done. You can go your way. Have a great day, enjoy yourselves. Next, the Compliance Division, item 5A. JMR CLS Inc., DBA Tri-State Towing Recovery. Do we have anybody here for that item? Need to turn on your microphone. Still need to turn on your microphone.
Can you hear me now?
There you go.
Okay. This is Mary Huck, HUCK, representing the Department of Taxation, and I do not see petitioner or his counsel here.
Is he on the telephone by some chance?
If you are here for this item, please press raise hand in Zoom window or *9 on your phone to let us know. Chair, nobody's responding in the Zoom.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Byram. May I make a few comments about this before we,
Well, hold on, let's figure out what we're gonna do here since we don't have a taxpayer present.
we could hold it till towards the end of the meeting?
No, we're gonna do it now. I'm
Okay.
just thinking on getting your guys' opinion if we go forward, if we continue it and look for them, if we move it to the end of the meeting and see if somebody appears. Anybody got a preference here on the commissioners?
As far as I'm concerned, Mr. Chairman, I mean, we can either act now or we can trail it until the end of the meeting to give the taxpayer an opportunity to show up. I'm flexible either way.
Okay, why don't we go ahead and move this matter to the end of the calendar, and if, we'll address it at that point in time, Ms. Huck. Wherever you
Thank you.
went. Disappeared. We can't see any of you in Las Vegas anymore. Okay.
Chairman, this is Tina Padovano.
Oh,
LCB has...
Mr. Pope, how are you today?
It's fine, thank you all.
Yes, Tina.
Were you speaking of the conference room in Las Vegas or those of us appearing remotely?
You just hang in there for a minute. We'll figure this out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, apparently it's causing problems if we all have our microphones on at the same time. So we are to only have one microphone on at a time. So I'll go first. We're doing at item 6A1. Yvonne Cao.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Yvonne Cho, spelled T as in Tom, S as in Sam, O as in Olympic. I'm the homeowner of the property located at 1849 Barton Road Street, Henderson, Nevada 89052. I also have the parcel ID, but if that is necessary, I shall skip that. I am here today to appeal the denial of my request for a penalty, waiver for an untimely payment of property tax on the home of which I am the owner. And at the risk of being redundant and stating the obvious, I base my appeal or my request on Chapter 361 of NRS, excerpt NRS 361.320, that if the untimely payment is the result of circumstances beyond the person's control and occurred despite the exercise of ordinary care and without intent, the county treasurer or the county assessor may relieve the person of all or part of any interest or penalty or both. So I have owned this property for 6 years. Never for once was I late in my property tax payment. Usually, I paid all at once, 12 months all at once. Last year was a very unusual time for me and for my husband. And I really thought I had paid Q3 and Q4 payments already, only to discover on March 20th that I did not, that I still had Q4 property payment outstanding. I would attribute that to just the aging process and also the stress level of everything that had been accumulating for the last few years. There was no intent on my part to be late. And upon discovery of this of my belatedness, I immediately made the payment, penalty, interest, and everything electronically. The same day that I discovered my error. So there was no intent on my part. Forgetfulness or absent-mindedness to me is part of the aging process, and also the stress level. They are all beyond my control. And last but not least is with all the rising prices in the last few years, my husband and I live on fixed income, even though the amount that I'm appealing may not sound a lot to you, $48.29. But you know, $48.29 here and $48.29 there, pretty soon we are talking serious money. I mean, we are talking real money. So I am here to request your granting me the waiver of the penalty and the interest in the amount of $48.29 because of the lack of intent and circumstances beyond my control.
Ms. Salas?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Victoria Salas with the Department of Taxation. As stated in RS 361.4835, the standard for determining a request for a waiver of penalty is whether the late payment is a result of circumstances beyond the control of the taxpayer and occurred despite the exercise of ordinary care and without intent. I believe a representative of the Clark County Treasurer's Office should be present via the telephone. And I also wanted to point out that in the topic letter that I presented to the board, it says a partial refund, but indeed Ms. Yvonne is requesting for a full refund, not a partial refund as stated in the topic letter. So I didn't want to confuse you guys, I'm sorry.
Do I have any comment from the county folks? Okay, any questions by any of the commissioners? Do I have a motion from any of the commissioners? Oh,
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Byram. I believe that a mistake was made and the payment wasn't made on time, and generally that the penalty applies. And Clark County was correct to assess that it was a mistake and the penalty applies, but we have the opportunity to use some judgment on the tax commission, and given the fixed income, the age of the folks, and the explanation she's given, I would be inclined to waive the penalty for her, and I would move to waive the penalty.
would you make that into a motion?
That is a motion.
Okay, any seconds?
Commissioner Bellows, I'll second.
Those that agree say aye.
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 Thank you. May I?
Yeah,
just,
your penalty's been waived, and have a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Next is item 6A2, Wilson Liu and Bay Safira Liu.
Again, Victoria Salas.
Chair, we have callers on the line.
Let Ms. Salas first address the commission, then we'll go to the callers on the line.
Yes, Victoria Salas for the record. Again, as stated in RS 361.4835, the standard for determining a request for waiver of penalty is whether the late payment is in a result of for circumstances beyond the control of the taxpayer and occurred despite the exercise of ordinary care and without intent. And again, the taxpayer and the authorized agent should be over the phone, and same as the Clark County Treasurer.
And are the taxpayers on the telephone?
Yes, sir, it should be.
If you are the taxpayer on, oh, so sorry. If you are the taxpayer on the line, please press *9 now so that we can identify you.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah,
Would
so
you
my name
identify
is Joe
yourself,
Dagger
please?
from the law firm. Sure. My name is Joe Dagger, D-A-G-H-E-R, from the law firm Ballard Spar, representing the taxpayers in this petition. So I'm happy to give you an overview of the tax appeal here, or I submitted also a letter that hopefully made it in your backup materials, but let me just give you a high-level overview. My clients are the property owners of this residence located at 803 Dragon's Eye Drive in Henderson. This is their vacation home, and every year in August, when the new tax assessments go live, my clients make the full payment for the year. They don't pay quarterly. And the last payment that they made on this property was August 1 of 2023 for the 2023-2024 tax cycle. And so what happened was, unbeknown to my client, there was a new construction supplemental tax imposed on this parcel following the August of 2023 payment that they made. So when my clients paid their taxes in August, they presumed that the next payment would be August of 2024 now, similar to prior practices. And my clients were not aware of the supplemental tax, did not receive any information about the supplemental tax. And the only reason why they found out was because I was working on an unrelated matter for them and stumbled across this pretty steep tax bill. So what we did is we paid it. The Clark County Treasurer imposed a steep penalty of about $5,100, which my clients paid pending this appeal. And so when you look at the statute is exactly contemplates scenarios like this, which is the result of circumstances beyond the person's control and occurred despite the exercise of ordinary care and without intent. As discussed, the penalty was here pretty severe and certainly beyond the taxpayer's control and occurred despite the August 2023 tax payment that my clients made, which I think goes to the exercise of ordinary care and without intent element. So under the circumstances, I reached out to Ken Diaz, who's the Clark County Treasurer. I explained to him, and then in return, we just get a response, boilerplate letter, denial letter saying we just deny. So for these reasons, we would respectfully request that you waive the $5,148 tax penalty under the circumstances. And I want to thank you for your consideration of this request, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Is the county on the telephone?
Can the representative from the county please press *9 to take so that we can identify you, or raise hand in your Zoom window? Please press *6 to unmute. There you go.
I'm sorry about that. This is Linda Howard, Howard, representing Clark County Treasurer's Office. For the property taxes on this parcel, the gentleman was correct. We did send the one bill out, and it was paid in full. And then there was an assessment for new construction added. We sent a bill on September 9th, 2023, with a grace date of October 12th, 2023, to the address we have on record since February 2022. And that address is 7751 Brisk Ocean Avenue. After we did not receive a payment, we sent a past due notice in October after the it was actually October 23rd, 23. And then we sent 2 more notices after that, one in January and again another one in March, all to the same address that we have on record.
Do I have any questions?
So we did send notices, and I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Those notices were not returned. And those notices were not returned to our office, so they were received at that address.
Okay, thank you. Do any of the commissioners have any questions for any of the parties?
I do.
Commissioner Sheets?
Ms. Howard, this is Tom Sheets. I'm one of the commissioners. The address that you sent the notices to, or the series of notices to, does that correspond to one of the APN numbers that's referenced, has been referenced by the department in its materials? Do you know?
So it's the mailing address is different than the property address.
No, I
So
understand.
the mailing address that we have on record, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So it's a mailing address for this parcel. It is not the property address.
Okay, the material or the explanation that we were given, I think, if I'm right, characterized 2 APN numbers for 2 separate parcels. And my question is, does the address that the notices were sent to correspond to one of those 2 parcel numbers?
I don't have the other parcel number. On this one, I thought they were just referring to the one parcel. But if they own other property.
Commissioner Sheets. This is Joe Dagger again on Ballard Spar on behalf of the taxpayers.
Yes.
The other parcel that was referenced was used as an example to show that these taxpayers pay their property taxes on time. And so I put that in there just to show that they have a history of paying every single August for years. So this is why I pretty much cited that. But to answer your question, this appeal only relates to 803 Dragon's Eye Drive.
I understand.
And the Clark County Treasurer, right.
Mr. Dagger, my question is, my question is the other APN number associated with the address that the notices were sent to? Because in the material and in your explanation, you suggested this was a summer home for these folks.
So this is a vacation home for these folks. The APN so the other APN where the notices were sent, I did reference that APN in the letter that I sent you all, again, to show that they made timely tax payments. They do not live there ever since they purchased the property at Dragon's Eye Drive.
Okay, do you recognize the address or do your clients recognize the address that the notices were sent to? The Breezewood?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. But their position is that they did not receive those notices.
All 4 of them?
Correct.
Okay. And
Mr. Chairman, this is Linda Howard, if I may speak.
yeah. Oh, sorry, George.
Yes.
So I was able to pull up that address, and that address is the situs address 7751 Brisk Ocean for the other parcel number. The mailing address for that parcel is even different. Again, it doesn't have the same address. So the mailing addresses are for the 7751 Brisk Ocean. There's a different mailing address for that one also.
This is Joe Dagger again. I believe the mailing address is 1980 Festival Plaza Drive, which is where I work. So when I recorded the deed for these taxpayers, I did request that the mail, the bills for the Clark County from the Clark County Treasurer go to me.
Any other questions from any of the commissioners?
Mr.
Commissioner
Chairman,
Witt? Oh,
who's got their button down?
Commissioner Witt?
Yes, I just wanted a little clarity on the construction tax. I wasn't able to find out how much that tax was. I see what the penalty is, but I don't recall seeing the amount that caused the penalty.
I can give you that. The amount for the new this is Linda Howard with the Treasurer's Office. The amount for the new construction is $34,321.62.
Thank you.
Commissioner Byram?
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Byram, and I do have a question. For a tax amount of $34,321, there must have been a construction project that took place on the property. And so I wanted to know if that was, confirm if that was construction put on the property that the property owner was aware of and knew about, and how it was picked up by the assessor, because they would have had permits. The assessor may have picked it up by visiting the site, or it may have been reported by the taxpayer. But for a substantial construction project to take place on their home, that that would tell me whether or not they should have expected a supplemental tax bill. But can you explain why there was, what the construction project was and who knew about it?
Mr. Daggett, I think that's a question to you.
Yeah. Right. So, yes. So this was a new construction with, it was a single-family home with a pool, which is why there was the pretty steep supplemental tax imposed afterwards. Well, my clients actually received the turnover from Blue Heron in May of that year, in May of, was last year, so in May of 2023. Again, there was nothing from the Clark County Treasurer until after they did their regular August payment. So I think the representative said the supplemental tax was imposed in September. So they've lived there since May. They got the keys in May, and they paid their bill in August.
They lived there?
Right? I'm sorry? I'm sorry, I didn't pick up your question.
So they did live there in the home?
Correct, yeah, yeah.
And they had just constructed the home, and they didn't expect to have a tax bill for the construction?
That's right.
Oh.
Yep, that's exactly right.
And as long as it was sent to the address on record by the county, then the county didn't do anything wrong, and the taxpayer should have expected the bill. I don't see the justification for waiving a penalty in that case. Am I missing something?
Well, I mean, I don't want to repeat myself, but I think that I outlined the justification in that they pay timely every August. This was something that occurred after August. They did not receive the bills. I know that the treasurer, there's a dispute there as to when the bills were sent and where the bills were sent. Their position is they did not receive the bills. Had they received the bills, they would have timely, absolutely complied and paid. And this is a one-time thing, you know, for a track record going back several years. So we would ask respectfully for you to waive this. And going forward, you know, this won't happen again going forward.
It seems to me that the property was in place on the lien date of July 1, because you said they were living in it. It had been completed, and they were living in it. And when they received their tax assessment, it was based on just the land and not the house, knowing that they were living in the house. Supplemental tax bills for new construction are kind of a make-up for that. They track back to that lien date because that property existed on the lien date but had been missed. So I don't see justification.
My understanding is that the lien date was September 9th.
The lien date?
Yeah, that's what I just heard the representative from the county say, that the lien date was September 9th.
Okay. That's all the questions I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other questions by any commissioners, or do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, this Tom Sheets, if there are no other questions, I would move to deny the waiver of the penalty amount that's been requested by the taxpayer.
Do I have a second?
Commissioner Byram, second.
Those that agree, please say aye.
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 Is there any nays? No, unanimously approved. The penalty waiver is denied. Item 6A3, William Blair.
Hi, again, Victoria Salas for the record. As stated in RS 361.4835, the standard for determining a request for waiver of penalty is whether the late payment is a result of circumstances beyond the control of the taxpayer and occur despite the exercise of ordinary care and without intent.
Is Mr. Blair present? On the telephone or in Las Vegas?
Any callers here for this item, please press star 9 now to take your place and so that we know you're here.
Mr. Chairman, no one's coming forward in Las Vegas.
All right, thank you. In light
We
of
have a caller on the line. He needs to press star 6 to unmute, please.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, Victoria Salas for the record. I talked to Mr. Blair about a week ago, and he mentioned that he was having some health issues, and he wasn't sure if he was going to be able to make it or not.
Apparently, there's somebody on the telephone. Have they unmuted?
This is William Blair.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Blair.
Hello?
This is your yeah. Can you hear me? Hello, Mr. Blair.
Yes, I hear you. You may call me. Hello.
Yeah, this is your opportunity.
I'm here.
Mr. Blair, this is your opportunity to explain to us your position.
Okay. First of all, you may call me Bill. If you can hear me okay, I hope I'm doing this right.
Yeah, we can hear you fine. Thank you.
Okay. Pretty much what is in my letter, what is in my request for the refund and appeal is as is stated, where I did make the payment on time, but the post office apparently did not get that to you. You, as the county tax people, even provide the envelopes for us to mail them in. Unfortunately, the post office did fail me this time, and as soon as I was made aware of it by the penalties and fees that I received, I took the time and the effort to get to the treasurer's office immediately that following month, and I paid them in person as asked for. They told me I had to write this letter in my own handwriting, which I did the best I could considering the stroke I'd had. I have paid everything on time in the past on my property on Sierra Trail, and of course this time I also had the property on O'Bannon, as my brother had passed away the previous year in 23. I'm sorry the post office let us down this time. I don't believe I made any mistakes, and I was even told by the treasurer's office that I would hear, after leaving the letter with them, I would hear from the treasurer's office in a couple of weeks, but that did not happen for at least 3 to 4 weeks. I think it's a shame that I tried to do everything right, that apparently the post office in this case, which was out of my control, made a mistake. I wish I would be allowed this mistake when I feel like I was given a mistake by the treasurer's office. Other than my letter, that's basically all I have to say. That's why I'm requesting the approval of the commission to waive these penalties and fees back to me.
Thank you, Mr. Blair. Any comments from the county?
This again is Linda Howard, representative for the Clark County Treasurer's Office. Mr. Blair is correct. We received the payment late, and that was not a reason for us to be able to waive the penalty, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you. Any questions by any commissioners? No?
Mr. Chairman, I guess I have one question for the taxpayer. Looking at your letter, Bill, it looks like you wrote on here, I'm having a difficult time reading some of your handwriting, but it looks like you wrote on the top line, forgot stamp. Did you actually put proper postage when you mailed your taxes to the county?
This is Mr. Blair, Bill again. My best recollection is that I put stamps on there as I normally do, but I'm also not saying that I might have forgotten. Again, I'm going back to the fact that I had a stroke, as you stated yourself, a very difficult time reading the letter because I do not write very well with my right hand after the stroke. I'm sorry that appeal letter is not any clearer than it is, but living alone is the best I could do. And the fact that I was at the treasurer's office when they handed that form to me, that I had to be in my own writing. I will not state whether I remembered the stamp or not. I believe I did. But even then, I would have thought that the post officer would have returned it to me because I do know that I had my return address on there.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion by any commissioners?
This is Commissioner Witt. I would move in favor of the taxpayer.
Do we have a second?
Commissioner Byram, second.
Those that agree say aye.
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 Mr. Blair, you were successful. Have a nice day and hopefully feel better.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day, everybody.
You're welcome. Item 4A1, JMR, CLS, Tri-State. Apparently the taxpayers have made it. So let's call that item. Five A1, yes. Okay. Before we start, I would like to explain the time limits that apply to these items so there's no misunderstanding. Each party is going to have 15 minutes to present their position with a 5-minute period to reply. And we're having, can the taxpayer and the representatives identify themselves because we just can't tell who's there on the screens.
All right, Tom Patel, sitting in the width chair. To my left is my paralegal, Harold Gawerda, and to the far left is Mr. Rubico from Tri-State.
Good morning, Mr. Pitaro.
Good
Mr.
morning.
Gerwerder. And is that Ms. Huck there next to you to the right?
Good morning, Mrs. Huck for the Department of Taxation.
Okay. Mr. Pitaro, this is your appeal, so you can start.
Thank you. If I may, when we went through this and the documentation that is the basis of this appeal, it does not appear the Tri-State did anything wrong in this whole process that was reviewed. What happens, and I have Mr. Rubico to explain it in further detail if anyone needed it, but the procedure, there's a real formalized procedure in what you have to do with a vehicle that you get. You have to call for, and I'm just going to go through quickly, you have to call for an impound. The company picks up the vehicle, they create a tow ticket. These are all by statute. Then they get a removal ticket. Then they have to call Metro. Then they call DMV asking for the registered and legal owners. They then send letters out to all interested parties. They set an auction date. That date is set through Nevada Legal News, which, as we know, is generally the newspaper the legal community uses for publication. The auction is commenced, and after the auction is completed, lane sale paperwork is sent up there. And at the end, when this document goes up there, all the payments, titles, fees are sent to the DMV. The customer gets a temporary moving permit, and DMV reviews all the records. Now, in all the cases that we had that were presented here, I wasn't at that hearing, so I'm speaking from the record and from personal knowledge, but it appears on all the cases, all the individual vehicles that we're talking about, all these procedures were followed 100% straight through. Where I see the issue has come up, the dispute has come up, is that when the auction comes, and it is an auction provided for by statute, and the requirements of setting the auction up and the notice of the auction up are all required by statute. What isn't in there required by statute is that any administrative body can come in and say, oh, I don't like what the sale price was, because they do not determine what the sale price is. People buy vehicles out of these auctions to hopefully make a profit with them, buy low, sell high when they get it, or whatever reason they want it. But what we have here is sales tax. The sales tax was, in fact, taken on every vehicle that was sold, and that vehicle sales tax was then transported or sent over to the Department of Motor Vehicles. So it appears the first issue that we have out of this is that the department says, well, you didn't sell it for enough. And if you didn't sell it for enough, then we didn't get our proper taxes, and therefore you're delinquent. But what happens is there is nothing that says what a person has to sell it for. It is whatever a person makes a bid. If anyone, in fact, makes a bid, people may not show up. People may not want to buy the vehicle, and so that's where the first issue comes in, is the value of the vehicles. But that's not something the department should be involved in. What the department should be involved in was the hearing, the auction set up pursuant to statute. Did the tow truck driver follow all the procedures of setting it up, and was it conducted in a fair and commercially reasonable manner? It doesn't say that you have to agree that I think the price was fair and reasonable, only that the auction was set up so that there could be a sale in a reasonable manner. So what Mr. Rubico did is he sent all the sales tax from all the sales to the Department of Motor Vehicles, and he presented that evidence at the hearing. There was a few hundred pages of documents showing that. Now, as an aside, I'd like to point out that if there was something somehow improper with this procedure, the Department of Motor Vehicles never said, oh, you've been paying us hundreds of thousands of dollars. You shouldn't pay it to us. Let us send it back, remit it to you. So there was no remititure back. That money was paid over to the state, and it still is with the state. Mr. Rubico believes he had the right to do it that way, and I can see nothing that would prohibit it from paying the taxes to the Department of Motor Vehicles like he did. And by virtue of the fact that he followed all the statutes, and there is no dispute that he, as far as the sales of any of these vehicles, there was anything improper in the statute. There's nothing improper in the manner in which the sales were conducted, and whatever that amount of sale is, then sales tax was paid on that, and as I said, paid to the Department of Motor Vehicles. Some vehicles Mr. Rubico bought as an individual and went through a different route that way. But once again, all sales tax were payable, and we presented those documents to the board, and it appears that they ignored them or did not want to consider them as payments, even though that money has been gone. And the other thing would be a dual payment on the taxes, which is not authorized by statute. So what we're saying in our position is that when a business owner follows the statutory provisions for setting up sales, does it, sends out all the proper notifications, gives adequate time as required by statute for the sale, and in fact conducts the sale, and that sale is either conducted or completed, either a third person coming in and buying it, or in some cases he did. But nevertheless, all the statutory requirements were made. And when he requested, and when he, as he put it, is when he got the sales tax, it was the owner of the vehicle, the new owner, who was actually paying it. He was getting the sales tax from that person, but then Mr. Rubico, through the company, would then forward it, and he forwarded it to the Department of Motor Vehicles. So under those circumstances, we think that the ruling is unfair, did not properly consider the evidence as it applies to this case, to the detriment of Mr. Rubico. And so what we're seeking from this appeal, we're seeking one of two things. One, of course, is the obvious, to have the matter dismissed outright. We think that is, in fact, the appropriate way of handling this. If that is not what one wishes to do, there's some ambiguity here, then we would suggest that the matter be remanded back, and so that the proper audit can be done, as the Department of Taxation would want, concerning to show that those monies were in fact paid to the Department of Motor Vehicles, and they were paid in full. Now, those things have already been submitted the first time out, but it doesn't seem like they were considered in the decision. So if there's a question, well, was the amount that you collected proper, then we have no objection to them going through and reanalyzing those things, because we believe that all the monies were paid, all the statutory requirements fulfilled, and that we should not be here at this stage under these circumstances facing massive fine and penalties of over $100,000. With that, I would submit it and ask that that you consider dismissing the thing outright, which I think is most appropriate. But if you do have any questions as to dollar amount, and of course, being a taxation board, then dollar amounts is always very important to what your function is, and would ask it be remanded back then for a hearing strictly just to determine, did Mr. Rubico collect and forward those amounts to the appropriate agencies. So with that, I would thank you for your time. I know it's pretty voluminous and dull reading on it, but that is, we believe, the nature of the complaint, and where we think the errors were made in the ruling that was made, and that's why we're bringing forth this appeal. So unless any questions, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Vitaro. Mrs. Huck?
Thank you and good morning. I represent the Department of Taxation, and we're here asking today that the Commission uphold the ALJ's decision finding in favor of the Department's deficiency in its entirety. The decision should only be overturned if it's clearly erroneous in view of the reliable, probative, and substantive evidence on the whole record, or is arbitrary or capricious, or characterized by abuse of discretion, which it is not. This is fairly a straightforward matter with a few prongs to it. First, there were auction sales that were underreported, and then there were sales which were not reported at all. The ALJ found that the petitioner was not only in the towing business, but was also actively engaged in the business of retailing vehicles at market prices without a license to do so, and that the documents shown by petitioner to prove that it sold vehicles were not credible and did not accurately reflect the extent of petitioner's taxes paid. The department conducted one estimated audit after the petitioner failed to participate, And then a redetermination audit was completed after the petitioner sent in some sparse documentation. I'll just go through a few of the issues that taxpayers' representative raised. First of all, we do not think the audits were conducted correctly. This is not in the jurisdiction of the Department of Taxation, but Mr. Rubico, the owner of the Tri-State, did purchase vehicles himself through the auction process, which is not allowed under law. We also have documentation where Mr. Rubico sold a car prior to auction to the party that requested the car being towed, and then falsified lien sale documents to show that the vehicle was sold at auction. And this was in the state's Exhibit H, 143, 144, and 149. The department produced online records showing Mr. Rubico advertised that he bought and sold vehicles and celebrated his sales of over $5,000, none of which were paid to the department or reported to the department. Of the vehicles he purchased at the hearing, he admitted that he has since sold those vehicles, and that tax has not been remitted or reported to the department. The auditor, if they were not satisfied with the returns or information given by the taxpayer under NRS 360C301, they could actually calculate the sales price and supplement the audit, which they did. The ALJ found the auditor's method of determining the deficiency was based on information provided by petitioner, and nothing in the record suggested that the auditor's method was not reasonable or fair. I want to get to these documents that I think are kind of key here. They were submitted by petitioner in his pre-hearing statement, and I pulled two. So of the lien sale packets where he purported to sell vehicles through auction, there were 34 vehicles. He submitted 34 lien sale packages. He prepared the lien sale packages. The first one is petitioner's exhibit 14 and 16. In it, it states that there is a Chevy sold for $100 and Nevada sales tax was collected for $825. He includes a money order. These are all documents prepared by him. Then he went ahead and submitted receipts from the DMV for 33 of these 34 vehicles. If you look at the receipt from the DMV, it specifically states that there was no sales tax remitted. So of the 34 vehicles he admits to having auction lien sales on, he submits 33 lien sale receipts. Only 9 of those receipts evidence that sales tax was remitted. And that, even if we look at those 9 sales, the department still finds that sales price was underreported and the $8.25 of sales tax was not enough. And before I close, I'd just like to read one thing from the ALJ's decision, and then I can answer any questions. The auditor determined that Tri-State's record showed a concerted effort of dramatically underreporting the sales prices of the vehicles. It claimed it sold at auction, and also that Tri-State was in the business of retailing vehicles, which did not report on its UST returns. In considering the documents and the testimony of the record, the lien sale documents were manufactured by Tri-State and do not reflect what Tri-State sold the vehicles for, nor the totality of Tri-State sales activities. It was the ALJ's actual finding that the audit could have uncovered possibly that there was actually more tax due. So for that, we ask that this not be remanded and that the decision be upheld in its entirety. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Huck. Mr. Pitaro, do you have a reply?
Just quickly as to the manner in which the sales were conducted. They're all conducted pursuant to statute. There is nothing in here that shows that there was something that was done improperly as to statute. We dispute the idea that there can't be a sale in the way it is, but I think the last few statements made by counsel sort of undercut their own argument, because what they basically said was, we didn't get the sales tax. There was no sales tax there. And the $8, I think it was $8.
$8.25.
The $8.25 that we did get was inadequate. Well, you can't say no sales tax were paid and then say that the sales tax was paid was inadequate. And the reason that they felt that it was inadequate is that they determined, whoever the auditor was, they determined as to what the car should have sold for. But once again, that is not the purview of this or any other agency that goes in and says, I want this car sold for. I mean, if there was a statute that says the agency could say, I want this car sold between $500 and $1,000, then that would be the rule. But that would have to be a rule based upon pre-inspection of the vehicles and to see what problems were or weren't there. And also we have the situation with these that there are auctions where people don't show up. There is nothing that says when there's an auction, there's a mass group there trying to get it. So what we're saying is that we complied with the statute. We did everything proper under the statute. And we, in fact, did pay the sales tax, and we gave those documents to the department. They determined not to count the payments to DMV, and therefore say we're delinquent. And I once again, goes to my alternate request that if this board feels that that is an issue, then we can have it sent back and have a reevaluation done to make sure that all those vehicles had corresponding sales tax and it was sent to DMV. But you can't say the following: you did everything right, but I don't like the amount you sold it for, even though there's nothing that allows me to put my value judgment over your value judgment. What you have to be concerned with is with the sale that you get the taxes. And in this case, we think we complied with it. And that's the reason that we filed this appeal and asked that the matter be dismissed, or in the alternative, remanded for a reevaluation of the sales tax. And those documents are always provided, so it's not new evidence that is coming in.
Thank you, Mr. Pataro. Mrs. Huck, any other, you have any other statements?
Yeah, thank you. So the department does concede of the DMV receipts, 9 of them reflect there was $8.25 sales tax remitted. That's 9 out of the 34 receipts. These receipts are for the DMV, so there was not sales tax remitted on the other vehicles. However, it's always been the department's position that the vehicles did not sell for $25 to $100 a vehicle, that they either sold to Mr. Rubico to do a private sale, and that there was also vehicles not part of the auction process that were advertised online as sold by him. The department does have statutory authority to conduct the audit in the method they did and to calculate a reasonable estimate of the sales price of the vehicles. They use preset parameters, and the ALJ concluded that they were reasonable in their assessment. So unfortunately, we disagree that Mr. Rubico did everything right here. We think that everything was done incorrectly, and the hearing officer actually, or the ALJ, excuse me, actually found that he concealed sales purposely. That's all for the department. Thank you.
Thank you. Damn, Mike. Do we have any questions by any of the commissioners? Who wants to go first? Commissioner Byram?
I'm kind of shy, but I'll go first. This is Commissioner Byram. For the taxpayer, I want to understand your business model. You have a vehicle in record. It's a BMW. You towed it because it was improperly parked. So you towed a vehicle that presumably was operable. You then incurred charges of over $2,000 and close to $3,000 in the towing and storage. The vehicle estimated to be probably $15,000, and then sold it for $100. So, and I might be mixing a couple different vehicles, and and the value might be off. But who pays the $2,000 storage, towing and storage fee? Who pays that? How do you recoup that if you're selling a $15,000 vehicle for $100? How does that work? Your business model doesn't make sense.
It most certainly does, for the simple reason that if your lien, the total of the lien at the end is, let's say 10,000. They pay $100 for the car, that means there's 9,900 left, correct?
Yeah, who pays
So,
that?
no.
Do you need
So you can go to a collection agency, and the legal and registered owner in the state of Nevada is responsible for the difference.
So your business model is to incur some costs and sell vehicles below value. I don't know. It doesn't make sense. It appears fraudulent. And I have another question for you. How many tow trucks do you have?
One.
How many employees do you have?
One.
One employee, that's you, or you?
Yes, correct.
You plus a tow truck driver, or? Because we
No,
saw the
myself.
photos with multiple desks. So there were several people.
No, my daughter's mother used to just come in and help me do the accounting, but she's since passed.
Okay. So what kind of books and records do you keep? Do you have a software system like QuickBooks? Do you have an accountant?
QuickBooks, correct.
What do you have?
QuickBooks. QuickBooks. I'll be honest with you, since my daughter's mother passed, I was a little messed up. And now I'm starting to put everything back together. And we're working with a tax company to come in to fix everything. And we're going to be getting everything caught up in the next 2 months.
Okay. So you have QuickBooks during the audit period. And when you receive notice of an audit, they request a number of things like financial statements and your accounts receivable records, your tax filings, but you didn't provide those to the auditor. Or you didn't cooperate with the audit. Is that correct?
No, that's untrue. I gave them everything I had.
When they initially sent you the notice and they wanted to meet with you, did you sit down with them and have an opening audit conference?
We did, but Joan Sigma, when she came in, she stated that we need time. Then she said she was going to be there on the 3rd. And she came on the 11th, and I showed her on my computer, here's your calendar. You showed me. She kept coming out at the wrong time, and then she claimed that she was afraid. So I asked, do you have any emails showing your supervisors that you feel uncomfortable? Why would you come alone if you felt uncomfortable? I believe that was all untrue.
Excuse me, hold on a moment. Would you do us a favor, please, and identify yourself on the record? Because you failed to do that when you started.
I apologize. James Rubico from Tri-State Towing.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
So our understanding from the record is that the auditor wasn't able to complete the audit work based on the schedules that were requested. So then what the auditors are required to do by law is develop an estimate based on the best information available. And they did get some information, but it made no sense. For $200 to be remitted during this audit period, zero tax returns being filed when clearly there's an operating business there with land and a building and equipment and people and activity. There's a Facebook page and cash being offered for vehicles, and there's an operating business going on there, but the books and records aren't being provided and information's not provided. So what we have to have the auditor do is develop an estimate with the best information available, and that's what they did. And there's a nominal amount of tax that was paid through the DMV, but that doesn't reflect the value. That doesn't make any sense at all. It's clearly erroneous. And I don't believe you're registered as a vehicle dealer, and I'm not sure if that's really required, but you are registered as a seller, so you have a seller's permit in Nevada. And one of the first things you have is a commitment, is a privilege of doing business, not a right, but it's a privilege to do business in Nevada. You have to maintain the books and records, and you have to maintain them
Right.
for 4 years and provide them to an auditor when the auditor goes to check. And it sounds like the audit fell apart. They have to develop an estimate when that happens. And I'm not understanding how your business model works when you show such small amount of revenue, yet you're an operating business. So I don't know how you're receiving and reporting and recording the payment that covers your towing and storage fees, and why you're not recouping that from the sale of the vehicle, because that's the way most of those lots work, is they cover the costs that they've incurred by selling the vehicle for a bit more than what they incurred. So there's a minimal auction price. Go ahead.
Everybody starts off at $100. I'm competing with 5 of the largest companies in town. It's the only day I can do it because I'm by myself on Saturdays. And the amount of the car, now I sent 29 criterias from both CarMax and Carvana that they used. They had, were there rips in the seats? Were there body kits? Were there tires on it? These are things that they could not know unless they came. They couldn't sit at a computer and compare apples to apples. I've been around business since 9 years old, my father. I know business very well. All the tow companies do it the same way. If you have 5 companies and you only have so many people to come to these auctions, then you only got people that are looking for certain things, looking for parts. They can't tell me if these cars had motors, if they had transmissions. They're pig in a poke, is what I want to say. And you're evaluating an apple with a rotten apple. It's 2 different things. They've never seen the vehicle, and you physically have to put your eyes on the vehicles to answer the questions. And then they say, that price isn't firm. You have to bring it to us, the Carvana and CarMax, to appraise it. So, and I, in the hearing, admitted that this process was flawed.
Okay, and I agree, the process was flawed, but we're in the weeds talking about individual vehicle values, and clearly not all of those vehicles were worth $100. I mean, I do have another question for you. Have you been filing federal income tax returns?
We're working on that now to prepare them and fix them correctly.
So during the period of time you've been in business, you have not been compliant with federal requirements, federal income tax?
I was, and then I wasn't, but we're fixing that.
Okay,
No.
and your employees, are you W-2 employees, or are they 1099 employees?
I'm the only employee now.
And so you still are compensating yourself somehow, so are you a 1099 or how is your business?
No, right now, matter of fact, Mr. Patel I was in a car accident. I'm using that money because this business is, I'm trying to make it survive so I can sell it, but I'm having a real hard time.
Okay. I have a question for the state. I just don't understand why this business hasn't been shut down, or why it's still operating when they're not filing, they're not maintaining books and records, filing the proper documents, filing the tax returns, complying with the need for audit. I just don't understand how this continues, because I think they're digging a deeper and deeper hole.
You can.
This was, the questions for the state. The questions for the state. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. So during the hearing, a lot of stuff came out that the department was not aware of, stuff that got put on the record, and that's in the decision. So now that the department has this decision, I don't know, I can follow up with them if they are going to take action against any license that the taxpayer holds with the department.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
And if I could clarify one thing in case anyone has any outstanding questions about the estimates for the car prices. When you look at the lien sale packets provided by the taxpayer completed by him, all the vehicles can be assumed to be operational because they're not marked salvage, flood damage, total loss, rebuilt, non-repairable. So that was the taxpayer's own provided documentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from any other commissioners?
This is Commissioner Edelhawk. I have a question for the taxpayer. I'm just curious about the advertisements on the website for cash sales. Did those happen or did those not exist?
I'm not familiar. I don't understand your question. Can you ask it again, please?
I believe in on the record, there was information about advertised sales of particular vehicles for $5,000. We pay cash for cars. And this one was sold for $5,000 with a picture of that vehicle. A few of those. Do you operate the website for the company?
No, actually, the young lady that was doing it for me has passed away.
Okay.
I'm not computer literate.
Okay. So those have been up there for quite some time? That website has not changed? Okay.
No.
All right. So you don't believe that those are accurate?
Going back, we're talking to 16 and 17. I had a brain injury, cerebrospinal fluid leak. I forget where I'm going sometimes, to be honest with you. To go back that far, I can give you an answer. But in Article 57 of the legislature says that the owners of a tow company or their family members can buy a vehicle, but it goes through the same process. You pay the taxes like everybody else. And then on the other side, when it goes person to person, there is no sales tax on the vehicle.
Okay, so going back to Commissioner Byram's very first statement on your business model, how do you make money as a business?
Towing, impounding, we move just about anything that can be moved.
And how do you get paid for that?
We have companies that pay us direct deposit. We have companies that give us checks. We have companies that pays cash, different methods.
And all of those receipts flow through your bank account, your business bank account?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Those are the only records that were provided, is that correct? Is bank reconciliations?
All my records except the computer stuff, because like I said, I wasn't computer literate.
Okay. I have a question for the state. During the audit, or during an audit of sales and use tax, if there are suspected missing cash sales, what are the protocols for trying to estimate what those missing sales are?
I'm sorry to put the auditor on the response, but I'm going to have to defer to the department.
My name is Christine Putman. I'm an audit supervisor for the Department of Taxation. My last name is Putma. When we don't have cash sales, we take their credit card sales and we do a national average, or we take an average based on equivalent businesses in the area that do the same thing.
Okay.
To get their sale.
Was that included in this calculation, or was it just the auction sales?
We just went with the auction sales. We didn't do any other sales, as we didn't have any other documentation to prove there was anything else.
And no comparisons. So there's clearly a large hole here.
I think we probably underestimated quite a bit.
And in addition, on the audit, it references a modified business tax audit, but I didn't see any reference to those findings. I presume...
He has no modified business tax.
Okay.
He's not registered with ESD either, so that's how come there was no modified business tax.
Right, and it sounds like he's not paying himself, so there would be no resulting tax. Okay, that's all I have.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Commissioner Sheets?
Good morning. My name's Tom Sheets. I'm one of the commissioners. I guess this is for the taxpayer to start with. I thought I heard the state's council indicate that the taxpayer did not have a proper resale license for the sale of vehicles. Is that correct, sir?
No, the law allows us to sell the vehicle to satisfy the lien.
Okay, and then when you sell them, in some instances to yourself or a related entity, do you or that entity have a resale license?
No, sir. If you sell under 3 cars a year, then you don't need a lot. An individual can sell 3 cars a year, and if you sell over that, then they consider you a dealer.
And is there any of the period here where you personally sold over 3 cars a year? Based on
Going
what's-
back to,
I'm
my
sorry?
memory isn't that good. I really couldn't answer that question honestly.
Okay, if the record reflects otherwise, then you would suggest that you were in violation of what the requirement is that right?
If that's what it says, yes, sir.
And if I understood the state correctly, and I may not have, they suggested that, and I'm going to call it self-dealing, but you're personally buying vehicles from your company that is a one-person company, she said was not allowed under law. And that's a legal question. Maybe Mr. Pitaro can address that, and then I'm going to ask the state the same question. I'd like to know whether it's legal or not.
It's legal, sir. The legislature just passed 57 that says an owner of a tow company or a family member can buy vehicles because there's a new director at DMV and they're trying to change things, and some things they wouldn't let them change. So that's been in, and the company have a lot of pull, and whatever they get, we get. So everything I do is legal.
Okay, are you saying, sir, that the legislature just changed that so that there was a different standard during the period in which the audit was undertaken by the department with respect to the sales of your vehicles?
No, they just clarified. They didn't change it, they clarified it, because that's what the new director of the DMV wanted, clarification. And he is doing a good job, 'cause he's trying to find people doing the wrong thing, and he's making everybody comply the proper way.
So, just 2 questions then. Does the name Barbara Rubico ring a bell with you?
That's my mother.
Okay, and that's the lady who passed away?
Yes.
I'm sorry. And how about Rose? How about Rose Munoz?
She's a friend of mine. Her daughter used to do my computer stuff, and she passed on at 38 years old, unfortunately.
Rose did, or her daughter?
No, her daughter.
Okay.
Her daughter used to do all my computer stuff.
Right. So, and Miss Munoz is still your registered agent for the corporation, is
That's
that right?
correct.
All right.
Correct, sir.
So when you go to auction and you purchase a vehicle, what you're paying is sales tax based on the auction price. We'll call it $100. I don't care what the vehicle is, $100. You're tendering that to DMV, and DMV is not looking at what the commercial value of the vehicle ostensibly would be. Is that right?
I can't speak on their behalf. I don't know what they do, to be honest with you.
Okay. They just take your 825 and give you the proper documentation.
Yes, correct.
And then when you're given the documentation, the vehicle is titled in your name. Is that right?
No. No, sir. The buyer's not.
The buyer's.
Tri-State Towing, James Bico doesn't. We transfer it from the person that owned it to the buyer. We never take possession of the title the title is perfected and the person that bought it, and they sign on the paperwork that that's the price, and in the hearing, I produced affidavits showing these people, said, yeah, this is what I bought the car for, this is, and they totally ignored it. I don't know why.
But isn't there the intervening sale where you're paying $100 for the vehicle and paying sales tax on it? So in fact, at that point, under the law, the vehicle is yours? Isn't that right?
No, the buyer, whoever bought it, it'd be their car. If I bought it, it'd be my car. If Joe Jones bought it, it'd be Jones' car. The title goes in their name
Well, I
and
understand.
goes to them.
But Joe Jones isn't paying the $100 to DMV, you are, and you're paying sales tax on that. They're not
No, I
paying
don't pay the
$100 to the
$100.
auction people, but you're paying the $825 to the DMV for the sale of the vehicle.
The $100 doesn't go to DMV.
I understand.
$29.25 goes to the title fee. Excuse me, $28.25. They change it again. $28.25, and the sales tax goes up to DMV. The money for the car goes to Tri-State Towing's bank account.
Okay.
And that shows it on the paperwork from the DMV paperwork. It's how much is the sales tax, how much is the vehicle, how much is the total.
Okay. I guess that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Do we have any other
You're welcome.
questions by any commissioners? Okay. Commissioner Ryan?
Commissioner Bellows, for the record, just a couple questions for Mrs. Huck. I think in your opening statement, you said there were two categories that comprised the tax, and that were sales that were either underreported or undervalued, and then also sales that were not reported. I think when the auditor spoke, I think she said that they did not include the tax does not comprise any sales that were not reported. Can you just clarify that? What portion of the $100,000 tax goes to underreported versus not suspected, not reported?
Yeah, and I'm sorry, if I could defer to the auditor.
This is Christine Putman again. When I said underreported,
Christine, can you move over so we could see you, please?
Oh, sorry.
Keep on
Can you
going.
see me now?
There you go. Thank you.
So the underreported sales that I said that we didn't catch would have been any cash sales. Anything that we got was from we took an average of the sales that we got from the cars that he gave us, the sales certificates that he gave us, took an average of that, and then we just got an average for the rest of the audit period. So the months that he gave us, we then did an average per month for each audit period after that.
Okay. Thank you.
So it's just the cash sales we did not get.
Commissioner Bellows, is that it? Any other questions from any commissioners? Commissioner Sheets?
I have one more question. During the audit period, which was 2016 to 2019, and this is for the state, was the taxpayer filing any sales tax returns with the department related to the sale of these vehicles?
No, all the returns were zero except for one, which he reported $200.
And the $4,200 return, do you know whether that was attributable to the sale of vehicles or for revenue generated by the towing operation, if you know?
I think it was just for the sales because it was only $200 that he reported to us.
$200 for sales?
Correct.
Okay, so
She
he
said
did.
she's-
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, she said she's not actually sure.
Ladies, ladies, you need to identify yourselves before you start speaking, please.
This is Mary Huck, and Ms. Putman said she's not sure what you can attribute the $200 to. They thought it could possibly be sales because of the amount.
So, same question to the taxpayer. for that period, or Mr. Pitaro, whoever wants to address the issue. The state has said that you made no sales tax filings during that period, 2016 through 2019, other than on one occasion, and they've characterized the amount you paid as $4,000. Or $200. I apologize.
$200. No, she said the other ones was zero
Yes.
because we were a facilitator. You would buy the vehicle, then money orders would go up because we don't use checks because they'll stop your account if one bounces. So we went to cashier's checks or money orders and would send them up. So they would bring them, we would send them up, and that's why we filed zero. We didn't put any money in a bank account. We took them in and then sent them up with the paperwork.
But I guess the answer is you did file returns. You just
Correct.
showed a zero balance on those returns. So it wasn't like you
That would
didn't
be-
file a return. Okay. That resolves it for me. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any other questions from any other commissioners? Okay, if not, do we have any motions by any of the commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Byram. I would move to uphold the administrative law judge's decision in its entirety.
Do we have a second?
Commissioner Roder seconds.
All those that agree say aye.
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 Anybody disagree, say nay. Unanimously, the administrative law judge's ruling has been unanimously approved. Thank you, gentlemen, ladies.
Thank you.
Let's do item 6B1 now, and then after that, we'll take a couple-minute break. That's Elsa Carmona Irrevocable Trust.
It's been a pleasure working with you, Sharon.
Okay, ladies, if we can identify ourselves and who's who?
I'm Kelly Wilson, spelled W-I-L-S-O-N, with Lyon County Assessor's Office.
Erin Singley, S-I-N-G-L-E-Y, Lyon County Assessor's Office.
You need to push your button and speak into the microphone.
Esley Carmona with the Esley Carmona Trust.
Ms. Carmona, this is your appeal, so you can go first.
Thank you, sirs and madams. I am here today to try and correct numerous errors. I have a few errors that were done on computations by the Lyon County Assessor's Office. One of the errors has to do with the 3% tax cap. Kelly Wilson computed numerous errors on a sheet, and this sheet was in my exhibit. It was in Kelly Wilson's exhibit, and I believe Kelly Wilson's exhibit number is Exhibit B. There was an error by Kelly Wilson of $493.08 that I was hoping that I could have that refunded. It's a very big error. It's a clear error. And when I was trying to tell the Honorable Judge Smith, she asked her if there were any errors. She asked Ms. Wilson if there were any errors, and Ms. Wilson said no. And I kept telling her there were errors, but nobody listened to me. So I would like to have you and myself and the assessors go over the errors because it's very clear. That's one of the errors that I would like to have corrected. Please, I'm sorry, I can't talk, I'm very nervous. There's a few other errors that I called also. Because I'm here to have most of these errors corrected, the tax commission is in charge of incorrect taxes, and when the taxes are done incorrectly, the tax commission has a right to oversee the errors and correct the errors for the taxpayers. There was numerous assessments that were just filed completely over what I would consider to be an accurate assessment of the properties. This led to higher unequal taxes. The number of, and I can't see very good, I need my other glasses. The big error is my 3% cap, which was currently being done at 8%. And I brought the evidence today, which clearly shows that it's still at 8%. And I am asking, I'm begging for someone to please listen to me and please correct it, because it's $493.08. The second error, I can barely talk, are land values that are assessed incorrectly. I provided, I don't know if you got them, but I have I gave numerous pages of documents that I submitted to the commission that verified my what? Okay. Okay, I'm okay. I'm okay. I just can't see. It was 195 pages I submitted, and I also submitted documents. The verified what I was trying to appeal. The judge went by what Ms. Wilson told her. She went by what Ms. Singley told her. And I was not given a chance to show my evidence. So I wrote on page 3 just a little tiny number of problems with my account. The big value problems were, of course, the land values, which everyone else in the county had actual sales computed on them, and mine were not. They gave a very bad false value of $260 for my piece of land, and that just was not true. Also, my home was assessed at over $70 a square foot, which elevated my taxes, while all my neighbors were equalized between $19 and $40. The correct abatement recapture was also done wrong. I brought my evidence of that.
Ms. Carmona, let me
Yes.
ask a question.
Yes, sir.
What you're saying you brought today, did you present that to the judge?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's
It's-
already
it's
part of
in
all the
ev-
record.
It's in evidence, and I believe I had 70-plus pages.
Okay. Let me explain something to you. Everybody on this commission has read all the material.
Yes, sir.
Is there something other than the material you submitted that you want to tell us?
Yes, sir. That's so much easier than to read through this. Oh, yes, sir. I believe the problem that I'm having is that I did tell the judge everything, but the judge didn't understand the errors of $493.08 that were on this document. She didn't understand the 3% cap when I wrote it down. When
Was,
they,
excuse me, was the judge Dina Smith?
yes, she was Honorable Dina Smith.
She's been on the, she's been a judge for countless years that I can remember, and she's pretty astute.
Yes.
Let's hear from Lyons County for a moment.
Okay, well, there was a single year in which the property did not receive the 3% tax cap. It was a result of a change of ownership from Ms. Carmona as an individual to a trust. We didn't realize it was the same person. We sent out a new owner-occupied request. It wasn't returned, but we have since straightened that out, and so over the single year that she received the alternative tax cap, we did amend that tax bill in January of 2023. As to other issues, her property has been valued based on NRS 361-227. We provided her, which I don't believe she's brought this up yet, but we've given her her veterans exemption to the extent that we have been able to based on the timing of when applications and supporting documentation were submitted. And she did have a final concern about an increase in her taxes based on a voter-approved tax rate increase, but that was done in accordance with NRS 361-4728, subsection 1.
Thank you. So listening to Lyons County, it sounds like they corrected the 3% tax cap that you're concerned about, correct?
That's why I'm here.
Yes, that would be true.
It's incorrect. Am I?
You're still live, yes.
No, it's not correct. I have the
So
document.
okay, so the dispute is you don't believe it's correct, and we're being told it was done. Is there anything else anybody would like to add?
Yes, yes, I have more to talk about.
It's in the record. You've already provided it, correct?
No, this is the law that basically says that the.
No. What you're reading to, you've already provided. We've got copies of that, correct?
But you don't understand the law. The law says that Lyon County cannot raise the taxes.
We do understand your position.
But
Is there anything else you want to add other than what you've provided and what you've
yes,
said to us?
under NRS 354.49817, you can only raise the taxes 15 cents per maximum of 100 assessed value.
Okay.
Lyon County raised the taxes 23 cents plus another 4 cents illegally. They also were not eligible to even do that because it has to go on a 2/3 vote, because it's a supermajority for any tax increase. That was the state legislator versus Settlemeyer James, who there is a state legislative law that says they can't do that. Also, under 361-478-3A, it clearly indicates that the cap is 3%, and under B, no other taxes can result from this because they illegally did a voter raising of taxes that was not legal.
Okay,
They
Ms.
did-
Carmona, listen, I'm going to cut you off here. We understand your position. Is there something other that you have that pertains to your property other than claiming that the vote was illegal? Something other you want to provide us?
I'm trying to get there. I'm trying to get there. If
Okay, but just let's get there then.
I'm old and I'm slow. Please excuse me. I have been trying for 6 years to correct these errors, and I have not been given the chance to speak. People always don't listen. They don't respect what I have to say, and they deny me without giving me a chance to explain myself. And I'm old, and I'm trying. Under NRS 360-095, specifically for
5 and 6, I am asking for the tax commission to please listen to the amount that I'm owed on this document.
Okay, Ms. Carmona, we have listened and we do respect you and we respect your age. That's an unfair statement. We've listened to everything you've said, everything you've given us. We have read everything. So at this point, I'm going to ask the commissioners if they have any questions of you. Does any commissioner have any questions of Ms. Carmona? Hearing no questions, does any commissioners have a motion to make, please?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Byram, and I just wanted to clarify, in case it's not clear, that the Board of Equalization is the valuation setting body. So arguments about what your property is worth and how much the value has increased, first you're dealing with that with your local assessor, and then if you dispute that, you're dealing with your county Board of Equalization, and if you appeal that, you go to the state Board of Equalization. They're the valuation setting body. The tax commission here's the tax cap argument. We're the policy setting body of the state and the head of the Department of Taxation. So it's a different roles and responsibilities are separate from the valuation setting body. There was, as you mentioned, there was a tax rate that was outside of the cap that was approved.
That's
But the tax rate is not in our purview either. We don't have anything to do with the tax rate that's assessed. And so the only limit, our limit of authority to rule about is on the tax cap, whether it's 3% or 8%. It was mistakenly, when you changed and you filed your deed to make it a trust, they sent you a card. They thought that it was a different entity. They sent you a card, it wasn't returned, and so the system automatically goes to 8% cap instead of 3. The assessor said they've gone back, corrected it back to 3 so that it's not compounding from an incorrect year.
This is 24. This is a new error. That's what I've been trying to explain.
Okay, and I think between you and the county assessor, it sounds like they are working with you to get the tax cap corrected. So, Mr. Chairman, if I may make a motion.
Please.
I would move to uphold the county assessor's valuation and just ask that you work with the county for them to demonstrate to you that they have followed the 3%.
May I make a statement, please?
I'll second. This is Commissioner Sheets.
Aye.
I was not given a chance to speak.
Ms. Carmona, you were given an opportunity to speak,
I
number
was
one.
cut
Number
off.
two, the commission has upheld the penalty. Thank you, ma'am. Just work with the people from Lyons County. They will help you. Okay, let's take a 10-minute break, huh? Is everybody present in Las Vegas? Commissioner Johnson, is that you there? Yes, you are. Okay, let's go back on the record. Next item is 7, which is the regulations. What we have asked Ms. Goodson to do is she will summarize items 7A, B, C, D, and E. And after she has summarized all those items, we'll take any questions or any comments, and then we will vote on those items as one package. Ms. Goodson?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. My name is Yvonne Navarez-Goodson, Chief Deputy Executive Director for the Department of Taxation. I will be presenting these items under Agenda Item Number 7 regarding the public hearings for the Tax Commission for 5 separate proposed permanent regulations. As the members may recall, similar agenda items from our last few meetings, this agenda continues the series of public hearings that we will hold from the Tax Commission to consider and adopt a number of regulations that were approved to move forward by Governor Lombardo's administration pursuant to Executive Order 2023-003. For a full review of that history, the public may refer to the Commission's May 8th, 2024 meeting, which outlines the entire history of the Executive Order as it applied to the Commission's regulations. Regarding procedure for adopting these permanent regulations, as a proposed permanent regulation, NRS Chapter 233B provides the process whereby these regulations have already the process by which these regulations may become law. The required statutory workshops for these regulations have already been conducted by the department. Today, we are holding the public hearings before the Nevada Tax Commission for actual adoption. If the Commission adopts the regulations in their current form as provided in the LCB drafts, the department will submit them to the Nevada Legislative Commission for its review and approval. Upon approval by the Legislative Commission, they will be filed by the Secretary of State, at which time they will become effective as a matter of law. If the Commission makes any substantive changes to any of these regulations, the department will submit those changes to LCB for a revised proposed draft of the regulation, at which time it will have to come back to the Commission for a future public hearing for approval and adoption at a future meeting. All of the Commission's proposed and adopted regulations are posted on the department's website, pending codification by LCB into the Nevada Administrative Code. Both draft and adopted versions of regulations can also be located on the Nevada Register published by the Legislative Council Bureau. As required by NRS 233B.061, these public hearings for these regulations have been noticed in accordance with the requirements of NRS Chapter 233B for administrative rulemaking and the requirements of the Nevada Open Meeting Law set forth in NRS Chapter 241. With that background, we'll move into a brief summary of each of the regulations and turn it over to the Commission to conduct its hearing. So under Agenda Item 7A, we have a public hearing before the Nevada Tax Commission for consideration and adoption of proposed permanent regulation of the Nevada Tax Commission, LCB file number R040-24. The department held the required public workshop for this regulation on July 9th, 2024. R040-24 repeals the regulation requiring a business entity whose Nevada gross revenue for a taxable year is less than $4 million to file a commerce tax return. Specifically, existing law imposes an annual commerce tax upon each business entity whose Nevada gross revenue in a taxable year exceeds $4 million. Before the passage of Senate Bill 497 of the 2019 legislative session, a business entity whose Nevada gross revenue in a taxable year was $4 million or less, while not liable for the payment of the commerce tax, was nevertheless required to file the commerce tax return with the Department of Taxation showing that its revenue was less than the $4 million. SB 497, however, removed the requirement for a business entity whose Nevada gross revenue in a taxable year is $4 million or less to file that tax report. And accordingly, this regulation repeals the existing provisions of NAC that otherwise still require the business entity to file that report for Nevada gross revenue in a taxable year less than $4 million. Moving on to Regulation R041-24 under Agenda Item 7B. Once again, the department held the public workshop for this regulation on July 9th, 2024. Existing law imposes a tax on the admission to a facility where live entertainment is provided and on the charge for live entertainment provided by an escort. Under existing regulations, if a taxpayer is an escort or an escort service, the taxpayer is required to register with the department to collect the tax on live entertainment and remit that tax to the department. The taxpayer is also required to maintain certain records for at least 4 years and make such records available to the department for inspection under certain conditions. This regulation requires that the full amount charged for the escort service, as recorded by the taxpayer, must not include any deductions for any service, cost, interest, losses, tips, or gratuities, or other expense. Moving on to Agenda Item 7C for the public hearing on Regulation R045-24. Once again, the department held the workshop in this particular regulation, again on July 9th, 2024. This regulation repeals provisions relating to the remittance of the Nevada state estate tax and provides other matters related thereto. The Nevada Constitution authorizes the legislature to impose by law an estate tax, but limits the amounts of any such estate tax to the amount of credit authorized by federal law to reduce the federal estate tax liability with respect to an estate by the amount of any state estate taxes paid with respect to that estate. It's a bit of a tongue twister. Existing Nevada law also imposes such a state estate tax on the transfer of the taxable estate of a person who resided in Nevada at the time of his or her death, or a person who resided outside of the state at the time of his or her death, but who owned property sited in Nevada at that time. However, the Federal Economic Growth and Tax Relief Reconciliation Act of 2001 gradually reduced the credit against federal estate tax liability for any state estate taxes paid with respect to an estate until such credit was eliminated beginning January 1st, 2025. Therefore, the estate tax is not currently imposed or collected by the state of Nevada, but estate tax would be required to be imposed and collected in the state if the federal credit were ever to be reenacted. Accordingly, the regulation repeals existing provisions governing the payment of any estate tax to the state of Nevada and the documentation required to be filed with such a payment. Moving forward to Agenda Item 7D, this is the Regulation R046-24. Once again, the department held the required public workshop on July 9th, 2024. This regulation repeals provisions related to certain credits against an insurer's ability for the general tax on insurance premiums, which have been eliminated. This regulation also repeals a provision illustrating the application of existing law requiring certain insurers to report and pay the tax on a quarterly basis. Existing law specifically requires each insurer to pay the Department of Taxation a tax upon net direct premiums and net direct considerations written at the rate of 3.5%. Before the enactment of Assembly Bill 3 of the 28th Special Session of the Nevada Legislature, the provisions of former NRS 680B.050 authorized a domestic or foreign insurer which owned and substantially occupied and used any building in the state of Nevada as its home office or as a regional home to take a credit against the general tax on insurance premiums. AB 3 repealed NRS 680B.050 effective January 1st, 2021, which had the effect of eliminating this credit as of the same date. Accordingly, this regulation repeals provisions of the Nevada Administrative Code related to this eliminated credit. This regulation also repeals a provision illustrating the application of existing law requiring certain insurers to report and pay the tax on a quarterly basis. And finally, under Agenda Item 7E, we have Regulation R114-24. This regulation, just for purposes of our record, was given a new file number by LCB after the workshop because of the 2-year deadline to adopt it. So this regulation was formally known as, and referred to during the workshop as R158-22. The department held this workshop before the department on May 23rd, 2024. Under this regulation, if a taxpayer fails to timely pay certain taxes and fees, existing law provides for the imposition of penalty and interest, but also authorizes or requires the department to waive all or a part of the penalty or interest, or both in certain circumstances. Under existing regulations, the department is required to waive or reduce a penalty or interest, or both, for a late payment if the total penalty and interest for the late payment is $15 or less. This regulation clarifies that this amount is to be computed as of the date the payment is made. Existing regulations further authorize the department to waive or reduce penalty or interest, or both, for a late payment if the delinquency is determined to have been caused by circumstances beyond the control of the taxpayer or the taxpayer's agent. This regulation expands the scope of these provisions to include any penalty or interest resulting from the late filing of a return. It limits the applicability of any waiver or reduction to any single period for which a payment is required to have been made or a return is required to have been filed, and in certain circumstances authorizes the department to grant such a waiver or reduction without the approval of the Nevada Tax Commission. Those circumstances include that the taxpayer has not previously requested such a waiver or reduction, has not incurred penalty or interest during the preceding 36 months, and has timely made all of the required payments and filed all returns after the end of the period for which the waiver is requested. And with that background, Mr. Chair, I would turn the matter over to you and the Commission for the public hearing.
Thank you. First, do we have any public comment in Las Vegas regarding any of these regulations? None
are coming forward, Chairman.
Thank you. Any public comment on the telephone?
To provide public comment, please press *9 or raise hand in your Zoom window. Chair, there are no callers wishing to participate.
Thank you. Any public comment here in Carson City? Seeing none, do any of the commissioners have any questions, or can I have a motion?
Move to adopt the package of changes and regulations outlined by department.
We have a second?
Commissioner Witt, second.
All those that agree say aye.
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 So the regulations 7A, B, C, D, and E have all been adopted, and thank you, Ms. Goodson. Next item, 8 informational items. We have number 9, briefing from the commission and the executive director to and from.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have some exciting news regarding our modernization project. We have 116 days before Mint Phase 1 goes live. It will go live December 9th. The Phase 1 tax types include sales and use, consumer use, cigarette, other tobacco products, liquor, live entertainment, and the real property transfer tax. Business testing officially kicked off in all 3 of our offices on Monday, July 29th. And the testers from impacted business units in each of the offices are hard at work testing the system to ensure it is being configured to meet taxation's needs. Testers have started testing registration and returns, but will soon move into other functional areas like payments, refunds, and more. Last week, members of the Project Mint team, including our IT deputy and our informational security officer, attended the Federation of Tax Administrators Technology Conference in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where they presented on leveraging AI for tax administration. And lastly, I wanted to, sorry, I lost my place. The last item that I wanted to discuss was I wanted to inform the commission that the department is now accepting credit cards at all 3 of our office location front counters. That concludes my briefing. If you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer.
Do any commissioners have any questions for the director?
I have a quick question on the credit card. Are we able to do that for the marijuana tax?
Yes, we're able to take credit cards from any business that has one. Most cannabis licensees do still pay with cash.
Still cash,
But,
oh, okay.
yeah, but if they present us with a credit card to pay their taxes, we will take it.
I just think that's dangerous. And hopefully that'll be cleared up one day with a lot of cash to be walking around with for the employees.
Correct,
And-
yes.
All right, thank you.
Okay, having no more questions, our next meeting date is going to be on October 7th. Let me just remind everybody, the October 7th is going to be the full meeting. October 8th, we will be doing the Broad Acres hearing. All of this will take place in Las Vegas. I've asked all the commissioners to join us down in Las Vegas for this. Also, the department's going to be issuing the notice for the Broad Acres hearing sometime this week. And Director, would you please copy all of the commissioners with the final notice that goes out for that 8th hearing so they have it, so they can see what we'll be doing. And other than that, look forward to seeing you. Plan on having dinner the night of the 7th. And have a great day and a great weekend.
Thank you.
I apologize. We have to take public comment one more time. Any in Las Vegas? Any
No,
in-
Chairman.
Any in Carson City? None here? Anybody on the telephone?
To provide public comment, please press *9 now or raise hand in your Zoom window to take your place in the queue. Chair, the public line is open and working, but there are still no callers to participate.
Thank you. On that note, everybody have a great weekend.